Hi, welcome back. In our last episode, we have refactored our application, our Angular application, by adding a client-side routing. So let's have a look at how it is, how it is structured. We have a main, uh, route, okay, and then this is the child route, of, right? That is implemented in our feature module. If you install Augury, and don't forget to disable Ivy. You can see you can visualize the roots here under router tree. Okay, you can see uh, our roots. So this is the main component. So if we go back, that's the main component. Okay, so that's the main component, and then we have this kboard, which is our child root, which is implemented by a feature module. Okay, so what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to add a root called create under the kboard subroot that will create our com- our our uh, our bots. So as usual, before we start, we will create a new branch. So we say check out -b part 08. Okay, so let's just to make sure. Okay, we got part 08, and I've got that application running. So the first thing we will do is we will open our editor. Okay, we will switch over to this directory. Okay, so the first thing we would probably like to do is this. What I will do is I will add another button here. We are currently in the main board, which the the main kboard component is the sort of like the landing page, if you like, or the landing route for the kboard subroute. So what I'll do is this. I will first of all add a button here to allow us to create bots, and then we'll add an additional route, a new route. So we will look for the main kboard HTML, okay, and let us add. Okay, we'll add a new button here, and we'll say this is a create button. Okay, like that. Okay, so let's change this to blue color, and let's move them apart. So I'll change this to the blue color. So I'll use the primary button. I'll leave that the event handler first, and then here I would say between. Okay, so between is the space between. That's the CSS flex. Okay, so now we've got that. I'll add a little bit of icon just to make it look nice. So for the back, I'm going to use the back button from Font Awesome. What I'll do is I'll use this arrow left. So I'll say FAS, FA, arrow left. And if you recall, I'm going to put a bit of space. ML is margin left. Okay, like that. And for create, I'm going to add an icon here. Create. I'll add this calendar plus. Okay. Maybe not this. Let's have a look. Maybe not calendar plus. Let's say new. Okay, I want this. Yeah, okay, calendar plus. Let's go calendar plus. So I'll go IFAR FA calendar plus, and then also ML1. Okay, we've got that. Right. So now I will add a new route to here by adding a new component. So I'll add a component inside the kboard feature module. So we'll go ng. So we'll use the Angular CLI ng generate component. We'll add it under the kboard in components, and I'll call it create. And then I want a flat, and I will skip generating the test. So once that is generated, we can come back here and we can look at it. It's here. Okay. Now we will wire this. We'll wire this guy into our root. So we'll say kboard module. Okay. So it has been so the module has already, the component has already been added here. All we need to do now is just do this. Okay, we'll say create, and then we'll say create component like that. Okay, so let that reload. So I hope it's reload. So I'll reload this. So we'll see the root here now. So this is /create, and this is just, oops, because of, okay, so this is just /. So to look at the create component, you just say create, right? So that's our root, right? So you just say create. So this is create. Okay, and this is the so this is the button. When we click on this button, it would lead us to this page. Okay, this view. So what we do is this. We will go back to our main board here, and we'll change this. Okay, so instead of back, I'm going to create a method in here called navigate to, and then I'll say this is create like this. So I will go to main kboard ts, and I'll create a method called navigate to, and I'll do this. I'll make it general so that I can also include this method from here. Here, so like this. Okay, and then this is what I'll do. Since we are under, since we are a sub root, when we navigate, we should always navigate relative to the main root. And so the way to do that is to inject in our current root. The activated root is a service provided by the Angular router. Okay, so I'll inject that as a service. So now what I can do is I can say this dot router navigate, and it takes an array. So I'll just put in the path, which is an array, and then this is what I'll do here. I'll just say relative to. So when we navigate to whatever the path is relative to our current root. Okay, so this guy here, so this is back. We can just say this navigate to, and then we can say, since it's a slash, we can say that. Okay. So now let's try out. Let's go back to our board here. Make sure that everything is still working. We can go back. And now if we click on here, hopefully we will come to our new root. Okay. So what we will do now here is we will now add the our kboard component. Okay. So what we'll do here is we will add this guy. We'll add this guy. Okay. So let's look at this component. So if you recall, okay, this component, let's clean this up first. So, okay. These are the artifacts from the episode where we did animation. So I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Okay. So so what we will do is this: we will render this component here, okay, by using the kboard selector, which is the element. So let's go back to the main component here. Oh, sorry, not this. We go create HTML, this guy. So okay, so we will delete, and then we will add the app kboard. Yeah. So now kbot is rendered here. Okay. We may want to give it a little title. Let's say column h2 create new bot, like so. And I think I will delete this guy, this element here. This element is in where is it? Okay, it's in here. Here we go. HTML. Okay, here. Right. Okay. So now what we have is this. We have this scenario where we have a component called create component, and inside this create component, we have the create component is using the kbot component that we have created earlier. So now everything works as before. I can say my bot created by Fred. Okay, maybe I can type some comments. Okay, and then let's go to console, and then I can click on create. Right. So this line here is from here. Okay, it's from here, right? There's only one problem. So the problem is this. So this is our scenario, right? So we've got the kbot component, and inside our kbot, we've got create component, and in the create component, there is the kbot component. The kbot component is essentially like an editor, right? So you can enter in the bot values, whatever, and then when you click submit, the information is captured from the form and is held in here. The issue now is this: we need to get this information to the create component so that the create component can take this value and maybe insert it into the database or what have you. There are two ways to do this. The first way is to get the component to fire an event whenever the create button is clicked. Okay, to fire the event with the value. The second way is for the create component to get a reference to this component, to hold a reference to this component, and then we can define some methods in the kbot component, like values, where the kbot component can call the method to retrieve the value from here. We will do both of this method. First of all, I'll show you how to fire an event from within kbot, and then later on, I will show you how kbot component can export an instance of itself for its parent component to reference it. So let's do the first one first, which is firing an event. So for the kbot to fire the event. Oh, okay, so I just noticed there is a typo here. Non-width space supposed to be non-white space. So let me change this first. Non-width space. If you recall, this is the form field validator that checks if the field is all spaces. Should be non-white space. Okay. Right. Okay. So what we need to do is this: we need to define an event. So to define an event, we will define an event using the output decorator. Okay. And then we'll give the name of the event. We'll call it on submit. And the event will be defined as a subject. Subject is a class from the RxJS library. So we'll say this. I'm going to import that. So RxJS. Okay. And subject subjects is a generic type. It takes a type currently, but I'm going to set it as any. So that's what we'll do. So now, in order to fire the event, whenever the process form is pressed, all we do is just this on submit, next, and we'll put in the bot. Okay. I'll remove these two lines. Okay, like that. So, so since we are using TypeScript, we want to specify the type that is being fired from the kbot component. So we will define an interface to represent the data captured by this form. In other words, the model captured by this form. Since this model will be later on shared with the backend, I will define it in a common directory outside of our Angular project. I will create a directory here called common, and in common, inside this directory, I will create a file called models, and I will now define the model that represents this data. So we will go export interface kbot. Since this is going to be stored in a database, I will add other fields that are not shown here. Okay, so the first one will be bot ID. Later on in the database, we will assign to this when is it created. Created on. This will be a number. So these two fields are not in the form. Now we will add the methods from the form. So title, which is a string, and then created by, which is also a string, and then comments, which is a string, and then we have this, which are arrays. Okay, so we can say cards. We'll call this kcard, which is an array. Okay, so we go export interface kcard, and the kcard is, the first is description, the second is priority. Priority will be enumerated types and enum. Okay, and then we can say low, which is 0, medium, and high. Notice also one thing, I have deliberately kept the name of the interface, the attributes of interface, to be the same as the form, as the name of the form. The reason is because when we get the value from the form, when we read the value from the form, we can directly map the value to the respective interfaces. So that is done. Okay. So now all we need to do is this: we will import that in. TypeScript allows you to define aliases. I'm just going to skip that from, say this common, and then models, and then this is going to be kbot. Okay, right. So our event is going to fire a kbot, not just a kbot. So if you recall, the form here doesn't actually fire all the attributes from our interface. So we have to say this is a partial interface, like that. Okay. So now if we come back to here, all we need to do is just set declare and assert as partial kbot, and then now we can fire this kbot. Okay. So let's quickly run through. We define an event that is going to be fired from the kbot component using the subject, which is a class from RxJS. So when the form is submitted, we read the event and then we fire the event off. Now so we are firing the event out. For the create component to read this event, we will go back now to the create component HTML. No, sorry, not here. The create component HTML, and then we'll do as we will treat the event, we will bind the event to our to a function in our create component. Uh, so we will say on submit, that's the name of the event, right? So if you recall, it's the same exactly like a click. So event binding, and then I will define a method called process in in my in my create component class. So to capture the event object. So if you just go back to here, sorry, not this. Go back to here. So we are firing an event called on submit, and the event has has an object, an event object. To capture that, to read the event object, what you need to do here in the event, uh, uh, in the callback, in the event handler, is to to put this dollar event. So the name is fixed. It means that pass me, along with the event, also pass me the event object, if there are any. We'll go to the create component, and we will now create this process. So the process is abort, and we know that the method type is partial kbot. So I can just do a console logout here just to be sure, just to show you that we are capturing the event, and I'll just say create component here, and then we'll say the bot, and then I'll just say display bot here, like that. Okay. Let me just tidy this thing up a bit. Okay. So that's how we captured the component. So let's see how this thing works. So this is our view currently, and it is inside. Again, go back to our grid. We are now inside here. Okay, so we will type my bot. Okay, by thread. Some commands. Okay, and we can just add maybe like add one card. Now, if you go to console and we click on create, we will now see that indeed the event from our component, okay, from the kbot component, kbot component fires the on submit, and the data is captured by the create component, which is the parent component that embeds the kbot component. So that's the first way, by firing an event. The second way is for the kbot component to export itself, and for the parent component to hold a reference to it. So why would you want to do that? There are instances in which the component, the parent component may want a reference to this, and to maybe configure the component. Sometimes in sophisticated components, the component may have methods for the parent component to call to configure it. Okay, so we'll show you the second method, and we'll use the second method later on in subsequent episodes. So what we want to do is this: we want the kbot component to export an instance of itself. To do that, we go back to kbot component, and in the decorator, in the component decorator, okay, we add an additional attribute called export as. Okay, export as, and we just give a name that this component will be exporting itself instead of itself. So the name, so it's like a variable that this component assigns itself to. So in here, I'm just going to call kbot control, like that. So that's it. Okay. Now, for the parent component to reference it, we will use something in Angular called template references. Okay. So let's go back to here, create component. We will now define a template reference, and the template reference will will hold an instance of the bot. So this is what we do. Okay, we go hash kbot. Okay, so think of the hash kbot as an ID, as a variable declaration, and what we do is this: we will assign it to the kbot control. So this name, has to be this name, because it's basically what we are saying is this. We are just saying, making a variable assignment from here to this guy. Now, we can now access this template reference in the kboard component, okay, like this. So inside here, oops, like this. Okay, so let me write this. So inside the create kboard component, what we will do is this. We will use we'll use a decorator called view child. Okay, and the view child will say we want to reference the template reference called kboard. So this kboard is this thing, this kboard. Okay, so this kboard is this thing. Okay, and then we can now say kboard control, maybe that's a variable. Okay, and the type is kboard component. Oops. Kboard component. Okay, so now we can still do the same thing here. I will just display out the value. Okay, so we now have a reference to this. In order for the parent to read the value from kboard, we need kboard to have a getter method to read the value. So this is what we do. We will say get. I'll define a method called get value, and this value is going to return kboard, just like this. Okay, and then we can say return this chord group value. Okay, so we define a method, a getter method, that allows the parent to call it to retrieve the value. So we are doing it programmatically, not through event. Okay, so in fact we can use this value here. Okay, we can delete this, right, and we can just say this value. Okay, so this is the getter method. Okay, so now going back to our create component, I can do the same thing. I can just say like this. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little text here, and I can just say this k control, and then I can just get the value. So now if we look at this, these two values should be the same. Okay, so I can say my bot, okay, at gmail.com, right? And then I can say this is a command. Okay. So now if I click create, you will now notice that this is the value that is fired by the event, and this is the view child from the view child, and both of them are same. Okay. Besides having holding a reference, right? What else can we do? We can do things like this. We can go this kboard control, right? Since this kboard component has methods like clearing the form, initialize form, I could maybe perhaps do this initialize form. Okay. So besides reading the event, I can control if the methods are exposed by the component. I can call on the methods. For example, like clearing the form. So previously the form wasn't cleared, so now you can just type something here. Okay. So now if I click this, notice that I get a value, and also I get a chance to clear the form. So the component can export additional methods, and then if the parent has reference to the component, the parents can just call the methods to control it. Okay, and so finally, maybe after we have read this, we want to navigate back to here. So we can do this. We can go private router. Okay. Oops. Let me import that first. also, let's do that. So we can do this router navigate. Then we can say we will go back to the previous one relative to this activated. Okay, so let's just try this. So we can go create. Okay, my bot at Gmail. Okay, comments. And now we can go create. So we get information. We now navigate back to the uh, landing view of my uh, of Kbot. So notice that that we've got navigate here, and we will have many more components over here under the Kbot. We have many more components, and all these components will need to perhaps navigate back to the main child and perform some navigation, right? So if you notice this, we're already having some repeated codes like this navigate in create component, and also there is some more navigation here. Okay, so what we'll do is that since we're using OO, so using TypeScript and is object-oriented base, what I will do is I will create a base, like a base component with all these common methods for navigation and whatnot and other things, and what we will do is that we will get the main any other components that requires these features to just extend from base component from a common component. Okay, so I'll call the base component. I'll call it base. Okay, so it's a TypeScript, and then I will import in router. I'll import in the router and also the activated route, and then also class base component. Okay, and then we'll go. So it's the basic same thing, private activated route, like so. And what we'll do is this, I will now copy these methods over. Okay. So let me call this guy home. So since it's really going back to the main view, and I will create a method called back, which let's navigate to that, like so. Okay. So now what we'll do is this. Here we will now extend the base component. Okay. And then since from the base component we need to pass it the router and the activated route. Here we will remove that. We'll remove the private. So since we are no longer holding a reference to it, we will let the base component, our parents hold this. We'll call super and pass router and also activated route. Okay, and we'll do the same thing with the other component, which is the create component. Okay, we will extend base component. Okay, and then we will do the same thing. Super router and activated route. So here we can remove this guy. We can just call this back, and we can remove this guy. Okay, so let's to make sure that everything is working. So from here we can go back. We can go to create. Oops, looks like there's an error. Yours nothing match create. So let's have a look. So this would be the under the main app component. Okay, so let's have a look at, maybe it's not called navigate base component. Okay, I think I didn't save, so let's try again. Create. No segment matching. Create. Okay, let me have a look. So that component. Extend. Okay, let's try. Cannot match. Okay, let me just try reloading the whole thing again. Oh. Okay, let me just go and have a look at this. Oh, okay, base component activated route. Okay, so let's go to the base component. I think there's an error here. Base component. Activate. Activated route. Okay, I think I spelled incorrectly just now. Okay, so let's try that again. And now it works. So yeah, just now I spelled it incorrectly. Okay, so now I can go my bot, friend, email account. Okay, so now we can go create, and we got those two values, one from the event and one from view child, one from the template reference, and then we're now back here. We can now navigate back. Okay, so in the next episode, what we will do is this: now that we have the values, we will now persist it to the database. We won't have any backend yet. We will store the data in uh, to the local database, which is in the browser. That is under here. We'll store the data in IndexedDB. Okay, using a library called Dixie. So till next time, I will see you. Stay safe. And by the way, if you want this code, it will be under the you'll be under the part 8 branch. Till next time, stay safe.